Vice Chairman of EICI, the authors of the report. I've just had a chance to glance at it. Seems very, very interesting. A lot of food for thought for all of us, particularly policymakers. Thank you, Dr. Arpita Mukherjee, Dr. Atul Sanganeria, and Ms. Ramneet Goswami for your work. Mr. Chandar Agarwal, and all the distinguished participants of this express delivery services engagement with ICRIER to come up with a roadmap until 2047. I was seeing the program and I realized that what Prime Minister Modi has very often been talking to us about logistics becoming the centerpiece of our attention, more particularly recognizing that this will be an important element which will determine our journey to become a developed nation. It will become more and more crucial when we are looking at international trade in a big way. Is possible, looking at the enthusiasm of the industry, we can make a difference to India's overall logistics ecosystem. And I think if we work together in this spirit of partnership, we can actually implement several of the recommendations which I could on a very cursory glance see are day-to-day problems that probably I've also faced when I was running industry or importing or exporting goods. In fact, half my work in the government has been very much influenced with my own personal experiences dealing with the government from the other side. And therefore, normally, I would not have expected ICRIER to play that bridge between the government and the industry, as well as I can see in this report. And I'd like to compliment you, Deepak, Arpitaji, and your entire team for engaging with industry and with government and trying to bridge the gap and come up with these recommendations. Thank you for that effort. And what I would suggest is that we do a deadline-based, a time-bound arrangement where the team from the Ministry of Industry, which looks at the logistics division, where we have a very senior official, Sumita Daura. She is Special Secretary rank. Ahirwar is probably joining you in the afternoon session. So I'll have Ahirwar lead this initiative. Surinder Ahirwar can lead this initiative. Maybe Arpitaji from your side, along with her colleagues. Maybe industry, different segments of industry may like to dedicate one person. So courier industry could be one, from the shipping side there could be another, whatever. And the days of COVID have taught us that hybrid working can really work. So I would recommend don't make people fly up and down from wherever they are, so we can get a flavor of people from all over the country, different regions. Somebody from the east, somebody from south and west, so that it's not just Delhi-centric. And put together this team and in 30 days, convert this document that you have just now presented to us, Arpitaji, into a roadmap of delivering what you have recommended. So can I hope to receive your support on that? And 30 days means you'll probably have to burn the midnight oil or work on weekends also, because each one of you have your own duties or your own work also. But I look at it this way. You articulated about the growth in our exports. In fact, just to do a little more deeper dive into this growth, we had a period of almost 10 years where India's export of goods and services were range-bound between $475 billion and $530 billion. highest we achieved was, I think, 536 or thereabouts, 36 or 38, in the year 18-19. Then 19-20, we had lost the February-March period due to COVID, so it dipped a little bit. 2021 was a further dip. 2021 was about $500 billion, just so that we are all on, we all understand what the story has been about. And that 500 was probably 206 billion of services and 294 billion of goods. That was the 500 billion we had. Of course, it was a COVID year, challenges many, and we had fallen from about 513 or thereabouts to 500 that year. Now look at the growth trajectory in 2 years. Of course, the post-COVID recovery gave us additional demand despite big challenges on the freight, pricing, costing, and difficulties of shipping. We were able to grow our goods from 294 to 422. So a massive jump. Services grew from 206 to 254. And collectively in 1 year, we grew from 500 to 676. And there was a lot of stress in the system. Most people felt that this is too rapid a growth and will be difficult to even sustain, forget grow. And that had been the historical truth, where we had always had a peak and then gone back a little bit. But one thing the Honorable Prime Minister keeps encouraging all of us to do is A, think out of the box, B, set bold, ambitious targets. What is that? Hairy, audacious goals or something? What is that famous? Big, bold, hairy, audacious goals. And C, don't live in the hesitations of history. Go beyond the past. Very often we have been held back because we always look at things from the perspective of this is how it has happened over the years. हमारे यहाँ तो ऐसे ही चलता है. And that's the changing mindset which at least we are making a conscious effort to bring into government. I would hope that we'll see that impact on think tanks like ICRIER going forward. Think contemporary, think beyond the past, beyond the historical understanding, and be bold in our outlook. I mean, it's a complete misnomer to expect that there are limitations to each one of our stakeholders' capacity to perform. As they always say, it's the ordinary people who give extraordinary results. And I'm happy to share, as was rightly pointed out, that while we had, in my mind, thought that we'll keep a 750 billion target since we are celebrating Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, 75 years of our glorious independence. At first count, everybody was hesitant. Gradually, as the numbers built up, they started saying we'll get close to 750. And I remember even as recently as probably 28th of February or 1st of March, I had one more engagement with the industry, both services and goods, to pump them and encourage them that, look, there's no going back. We have to achieve this target. And I must say, the response from Indian industry was truly very satisfying, very encouraging. They committed to me that we won't let you down. And I think the final number is going to be closer to $765 billion. I'm not venturing to make any announcement or anything, but usually the services final number comes with a little time lag. So we'll get the number only about a month or so for March. And I won't be surprised, truly I won't be surprised, if we actually go up to the number that I had originally thought of when I drew the $1 trillion roadmap of goods and $1 trillion roadmap of services by 2030, to which one of you also alluded to. The 2 trillion roadmap to 2030, when I prepared that map, the number for the year gone by was 772. I'm still keeping my fingers crossed to see the services number. And if we do touch that 772 number, believe me, then I'll probably reset that $2 trillion target also. Because in these challenging times, barely coming out of COVID, a lot of inventory pile up, causing us a loss of business, orders getting cancelled, textiles losing out because of raw material costs being very high, particularly cotton. Freight did get right-sized towards the second half, but the Ukraine conflict caused another new stress. There were restrictions on export of iron and steel products, iron ore, large export products, wheat, some parts of rice, and a few more which don't come to my mind off the cuff. All of these restrictions would have cost us about anywhere between 12 to 15, and yes, the petroleum products. There was either a windfall tax or some restrictions on how much you can export vis-a-vis your domestic sale, which was absolutely the right thing to do. And considering that, we did lose out on the goods side a little bit. Not a little bit, actually, probably upward of $15 to $20 billion. And therefore, on the goods side, our growth will be about 6%. It's not as if the goods has not grown. It's grown from 422 to 447 at last count. Final numbers are still awaited. Services is estimated to cross 320 billion. Also, in a way, bridging the gap. So 206 of services has become 206 has become 320 plus. More than 50% growth. Nearly 60% growth it will become by the time we get final numbers in 2 years. And why am I giving you all of this spin? Because it directly relates to your ambitions and your plans. Why did services grow so significantly, particularly in the post-COVID world? Think about it. And this goes back to 2015, when Prime Minister Narendra Modi launched the Digital India movement. The government has been very focused on taking digital availability across the length and breadth of the country. We must be one of the rare countries of this size and scale which has 4G connectivity across the landscape. In fact, many of the developed countries, when you go on the highways, you don't get a signal. Certainly don't get a powerful enough signal. Whereas by and large in India, save and except the times when there's very heavy overload of traffic, which probably they must be, I'm sure, addressing. Maybe an IPL match or something like that. By and large, I don't think we have a problem on our digital connectivity. And through the COVID period, India is one country, and we had a lot of back office operations. We had a lot of R&D happening in India. We had a lot of engagement in the services side, in supply chain. So banks, Fortune 500 companies had an element of their entire supply chain on services, which had India as a hook within that supply chain. Thanks to the massive effort which happened right from 2015, when COVID hit us, we were able to quickly rejig our delivery systems from offices, from special economic zones, to literally moving everything to the homes. I remember I was handling railways at that time. We used to give broadband connectivity to people's homes by the thousands every day, so that we did not miss out, or we did not let down a single customer anywhere in the world, even for a single minute. We ensured seamless delivery of services. And I remember when we had the G20 Leaders Summit in Rome, the night before the Leaders Summit, when we were discussing with the Honorable Prime Minister, he coined this phrase, India can be the trusted partner of the world. And I remember when he said it the next day at the Leaders Summit, everybody in the room, all the leaders who spoke after him, picked up on that point, that we look upon India as a trusted partner. And you don't very often, not you means any of us, we don't realize the significance of these important interventions or learnings or the messaging that goes out. And the message that went out was, trust India, deal with India, do business with India, involve them in your back offices because you have a transparent, rules-based, honest ecosystem with high managerial talent, with high technical talent, skills unparalleled, hard-working people with a deep commitment to deliver. So services today is benefiting from our ability to do express delivery services through this huge digital network that has been created in India over the last 8 years. The time has come, friends, that we do the same. We duplicate that kind of a story in the logistics sector for goods. And that's where I think each one of us is an equal stakeholder. Government stands shoulder to shoulder with you. End of the day, it's all going to be about trust. It's going to be about transparency. It's going to be about our talent. And all of this will help us in our trade. And friends, you mentioned about EDS not being a premium segment. I think we should market it as a premium segment. But ultimately, the cost should not be a premium cost. The time and days have changed now. When you're looking at just-in-time delivery, though in COVID people started re-looking at that, I think it happens in a short term, everybody's a little scared. But as we cross the hump, people are going to get back to GIT. GIT is a lot about express delivery of services also because there's a back end. At every element, the steel mill will get coal and coking coal and iron ore, GIT. They would like to produce steel and give it to the component manufacturer, GIT. And then the entire chain right up to the car being made and shipped out, from up to the customer. Everybody will want just in time. So express delivery services, I suspect, is yet to come to terms with the huge potential that you have within you. And get out of the old mindset or the restrictive mindset that somebody will have to pay a high premium and only then you can be viable in your business. And for that matter, almost all of us must be using courier service now. Why do we do that? There is still a post department. Now the post has also then first started speed post, now almost nearly a daily or a one-day service to compete with courier. I think it's high time we all recognize that that is going to be the order of the day in the future. You will not be the exception in the freight or logistics ecosystem. You will be the norm. If you accept that as your guiding principle, then you look at scale, you look at efficiency, you look at the building blocks through technology, which can help you bridge that cost and make it so attractive that anybody looking for logistics doesn't have to look beyond you. And while, of course, we on our part through PM Gati Shakti are looking at smarter, faster implementation, or rather planning and implementation of projects, while we in the government through our unified logistics platforms, ULIP, are trying to make an effort to make it easier to manage the entire paperwork around the logistics sector. When we in government are looking at how we can build out large amount of infrastructure, and friends, 10 lakh crore investment in infrastructure only by the government. If you add the effective investments through the state support that we give to each of the states, it comes to about 13 lakh crores. In 1 year, there was a time until not too far in the past where in a decade the government would not spend 13 lakh crores, which is planned to be spent in 12 months. And this is going up year by year. If you look at the last 3 or 4 budgets, it's almost quadrupled in 4 years. Railways budget, you spoke extensively about railways, because the 2 dedicated freight corridors will soon come up and have a significant impact. During COVID, we were able to, on the one hand, reduce or rather eliminate human loss due to accidents, but we were also able to double the speed of freight trains. And I think it continues to be far more efficient than it was maybe a decade or 2 decades ago. With the DFC coming in, it will get even more efficient. There are other DFCs which are on the anvil, which are being run through PM Gati Shakti to see its viability, which we hope we can implement in a public-private partnership. So the effort is in the right direction. But certainly when we work together, the efforts will become more fruitful, more outcome-oriented, will link us with the rest of the world much smarter, much faster, more cost-efficient. And I can assure you, the Prime Minister's vision for India is truly big and bold. I remember him in one of his engagements where he spoke about all of us witnessing a new history being created. We are lucky to be a part of this generation, to witness the transformation of India. And the entire world, friends, the entire world is looking up to India with hope, with anxiety, and with confidence that we can deliver. So we have truly a huge responsibility on our collective shoulders. But I know our shoulders are very, very strong. I know that India has the capacity to deliver. And if one was to look at what has happened in the last few years, of course, we have an ambitious agenda going forward. And since you also played on the 76th year, you did that? He did that. I had not thought of it. I was still looking at the 75th year. But I just, I'm a little scared to say 76th का industry ये ना सोचे कि 77th year में 770 ही करना है. So, while we are looking at bold goals, I'll share a small incident that happened, and since you also spoke about startups, we were having a startup advisory council meeting in Bengaluru about 2 months back. all the top venture capitalists, startup entrepreneurs, policymakers, all were there. It was a 2-day conference. And I was articulating the agenda of the government, or the way I see the Indian economy, or the government sees the Indian economy grow in the years to come. On a business as usual scenario, India will be a $32 trillion economy in 2047 when we celebrate 100 years of independence. Maybe ICRIER can also help us validate that. But I've done a lot of maths, I've done a lot of modeling. Many senior officials in government have done a lot of modeling. There's no question that we won't be a $32+ trillion economy by 2047, literally on a business as usual scenario. But considering the strong foundations that we are setting or putting into place in different elements of the business cycle, given the way we are looking at internationalizing our trade much faster, the free trade agreements, the effort to make India's exports self-reliant, the effort to encourage growth in goods and services, all of this gave me the confidence to suggest in that meeting that I see the number more like 35 to 40 trillion by 2047. I remember a lady in the right, sitting on my right, and she made the right noises, of course. She said that, sir, when we are looking at 2047, it would be appropriate to aim that the Indian economy should be a $47 trillion economy. And I love that. That's what we need from the young generation today. We need them to think big, to think that we can really achieve extraordinary results. Don't leave it for us, Chandar accepted, but the rest of us. Really, we are dependent on all of you to force us to perform more. You give us that drive, you push us. Our children push us. The young boy or girl of today is truly an empowered individual. The startups, case in point. Who would have thought 7 years ago when the Startup India mission was launched that from 4 to 110 plus, 115 unicorns in a period of 7 years? So many more unicorns well on the way. Some failures also, but what's wrong? Failure is the stepping stone to success, they used to tell us. I don't know anybody, there might be somebody who's always lucked out in this room, but by and large, I have not known any businessman who's not had a failure. Any entrepreneur or innovator or scientist or developer who's not had a failure. I've had my fair share of failures. When politically we were down to 2 seats in the Lok Sabha in 1984. 2 seats. Mr. Vajpayee lost. But we didn't give up. Nobody sat at home. It only encouraged us to do more. And that perseverance always gives you good results. And you get a good opportunity to serve, you do a good job, then they give you the next opportunity with an even bigger number of seats or support. 2024 is just round the corner, guys. And in a way, the 9 years of Mr. Modi's government is one of express delivery. Look at any action, most recent being the vaccine. The speed with which India developed vaccines, the speed with which we ramped up manufacturing, the fact that we could do 220 crore vaccines administered in India seamlessly. There are places in Himachal Pradesh and in Northeast where helicopters were deployed or drones were deployed to even take vaccine for 4 or 5 families at the top of a mountain. Apart from that, we, of course, responded to the needs of less developed countries, the Pacific nations, the Caribbean island nations, the African nations who needed vaccines. I'm told nearly 27, 28 crores were exported at affordable prices or in most cases free of charge. Look at Turkey when they had the huge humanitarian crisis, the earthquake, series of earthquakes. India, and they are not our best of friends, I think we all know that. India was one of the first countries. Prime Minister Modi was right on it that send the NDRF teams there to help. In a humanitarian crisis, you don't look at other geopolitical issues. When Afghanistan needed wheat or food, we were the country to provide it despite all the difficulties in our relationship in the last year and a half. When we go into our speed of delivery of various public programs, UPI, huge example of express delivery of services on the financial services side. Because after all, by democratizing UPI and the payment systems, not only have we saved the country from large amount of transaction costs, we made it so affordable today that probably moving money has become at a zero or minuscule cost. But we've helped so many people, entrepreneurs, startups, banks, get an opportunity to play a part in our Digital India or the financial inclusion program or moving payments to the digital world. That I think the last figure I saw was something like 800 crore digital transactions in 1 month. Is that right? It's 8 billion. 8 billion is 800 crore. So 8 billion transactions in 1 month. Total amount was some 125 lakh crores. Has moved, payment, money moves multiple times. 8 billion transactions in 1 month. It's probably financial transaction. It is only possible because of UPI. Who had ever imagined that India will have a system where 80 crore poor people will not need to carry their ration card in their pocket. This is their ration card. Their Aadhaar number is their identification. Nearly 98-99% of India has an Aadhaar number. Suspect all of us in this room will have our Aadhaar number. You just need to know your Aadhaar number and your thumb impression. And out of 80 crore people, each and every one of them can walk up to any fair price shop, and there are 500,000 of them, anywhere in the country, and get his eligibility for free food grains under the Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Ann Yojana, so that nobody ever has to sleep hungry in this country. Isn't that express delivery? Of course, I could tell you so many more stories, including the oxygen story. How India, which everybody was concerned that we'll never be able to meet the needs of oxygen, that was the only thing that really worked during COVID. We used to make 700-800 tons of liquid medical oxygen every day, 700 or 800 at best. In a short span of time, the demand for oxygen rose manifold. We were able to ramp up, and it's not only producing, production and distribution of liquid medical oxygen from 700-800 tons a day to 9,000 tons a day. Who would have thought? A developing country with scarce resources can manage to do that. And I remember Prime Minister would come up with an idea a day. So one day would call up and say, can we not use the planes of the military or the Air Force to transport oxygen? And the Air Force was aghast. No way we can do it. I mean, it's so dangerous to have a pressurized oxygen on a plane. No problem. Ideas सोचेंगे नहीं तो आगे बढ़ेंगे कैसे? We didn't even have ISO containers and tankers. We begged, borrowed, didn't do the third part, of course. Bought, I can say begged, borrowed and bought, not bad. From all over the world, airlifted ISO containers and tankers so that we could distribute. But most of the liquid medical oxygen would come either from West Bengal, Odisha, Jharkhand, that region in eastern India, or somewhat in Jamnagar, and few plants in Maharashtra. It would take nearly 14-15 days to move them from there to Chennai, to Kerala, to Bangalore, to all the southern states, and 17-18 days to bring them up to Himachal, Punjab, Delhi, two-way. Trucks used to go up and down, fill up, come, unload. It's another matter that the Delhi government only created roadblocks and really messed up the entire distribution ecosystem. And actually, I don't know how much loss of, it is a terrible, very painful experience we had dealing with Delhi at that time. But innovative ideas would come up. One day he called up early morning and said, okay, if you can't use the Air Force planes, you can use the railways. We had to cut down that 2-week time. Initially, of course, railways was also very hesitant. But then Honorable Prime Minister's suggestions, we got cracking and we started finding solutions. Ramps were made in one day. Trial runs were run because we had to see that the road overbridges on the tracks don't come in the way. So with empty tankers, ICRIER was very much a part of that journey when all of this was happening. Ran trains. You're a railway officer originally. That's right. So we ran those trains. Many places met with a dead end, looked at other routes, घूम फिर के रास्ते निकले, क्योंकि काम पे लगे रहे. We didn't give up. And we found the route by which trains could go. Then we found military cargo wagons which have a low undercarriage on which the truck itself could be loaded, so that you save time. If it is a container, you have to then move it to a truck through a crane and all. So instead of that, the truck itself was loaded and tied up and transported. So half the journey, 7 or 8 days, became 1.5 day. Moving by train instead of 20-30 kilometers an hour, now was moving at 80, 90 and 100 kilometers an hour. We brought down the time to by 5 or 6 days on the journey going up and about 5 days on the journey coming down. So 14, 15, 16 became 10. Then the Prime Minister one day calls up and says, okay, fine, you guys said you can't take oxygen-loaded containers on your planes. पर खाली कंटेनर तो लेके जा सकते हो, उसमें तो कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है. देखिए, मैं आपको सिर्फ इससे ये शेयर कर रहा हूं. मैं चाहता हूं आप लोग भी ऐसे इनोवेटिव सॉल्यूशंस पे काम करिए. अब कुछ लोगों को अभी तक ये नहीं समझ में आ रहा है कि कितना इनोवेटिव और कितना आउट ऑफ द बॉक्स और किस हाई डिग्री के इंटेलिजेंस से. आप बताइए, आप में से कोई इतना सब सोच सकता था क्या? किसी के माइंड में आया? मेरे भी मन में नहीं आया कि भाई अच्छा चलो, आपने भरे हुए कंटेनर नहीं लेके जा सकते हो, एम्प्टी तो लेके जा सकते हो. तो यू नो व्हाट वी डिड? द कंटेनर वुड बी एम्प्टीड हियर, और द ट्रक वुड बी ISO container, or the tanker would be emptied in the place, would go to the nearest Air Force base or airport, be loaded to the plane, go to the place where it was to be loaded, By that time, trains were kept parked. We had sufficient trains. COVID ke time pe trains were not running at full capacity. It would immediately load, come to the train, and loaded containers would move by train. So 16 days or 14 days or 18 days on the empty journey came down to few hours, and on the tank filled up came down to less than 2 days. And can you imagine how many thousands, maybe lakhs of lives we were able to save with this faster turnaround? Because there was no way we were able to reduce that 16 days otherwise. There was a shortage or a limitation to the amount of tankers and containers we had. We had converted all nitrogen, all argon tankers, all industrial oxygen tankers also to medical oxygen. All that purging was done, certification was done. Despite that, the sheer volume moving from 700 per day to 9,000 per day, moving through 3,000 kilometers, 2,500 kilometers both ways, was such a humongous task. But through the elementary ideas that Prime Minister Modi would come up with, and these would usually come up early morning, तो हमको दिन भर काम पे लगा देते थे. I'm just sharing this with you because that's what this government would like to see in the logistics space also. This is all about logistics, but see it in your business logistics space also. I think it's going to be about speed, about efficiency, about transparency, and ultimately earning the trust of the nation, of the world, of all the stakeholders. Speed will determine the success story of India. This is going to be India's century, as many eminent people have been saying. The delta from a $3.5 trillion economy to a 30, 35, 40 or even $47 trillion economy is so huge that we need 10 times the number of people who are in this room to be really coming up with newer ideas, newer ways of doing work. And if we work together, using the PM Gati Shakti, the ULIP, the fact that we have a digital and very highly sophisticated technology strength in the country, the fact that we are fast moving towards sustainability with green energy, already electric vehicles are expanding rapidly, we'll have hydrogen vehicles come into the system, ethanol is already 10% blended, will become 20% in the next 3 years. Mr. Gadkari is also looking at 100% ethanol cars, driven cars and trucks. So a lot is being done on sustainability, which will give us that edge when we are doing our international trade. Of course, it's also necessary for us to do it for our own very survival so that we leave behind a better world for the children. All of this, friends, is possible. Let's all of us work in that spirit of togetherness, work together to find the solutions that are much needed in this country. And I do hope the Express Delivery Services report supporting the journey towards India at 2047 will help us get the initial ideas, the initial kickstart, so that going forward, logistics should not be a deterrent to our growth, expansion, both domestically and in international trade. Thank you once again, ICRIER, for giving me an opportunity. Today is an auspicious day. It's Mahavir Jayanti. I'm half a Jain. My mother used to be a Jain before she got married into our family. So, a very, very happy Mahavir Jayanti to all of you. And I do hope the simplicity and the high values that Lord Mahavir has always taught and which has continued to inspire me over the years will continue to inspire each one of you in your lives, in your work. Thank you very much.
can I, before Mr. Agarwal, you go, can I just say 2-3 things just based on what you said? Sir, it was wonderful to hear you. I think your passion, energy, your optimism is just contagious. I had seen that, heard you many times, but this was wonderful. And I think by being so decisive and action-oriented and giving us a very express delivery target to produce something in 1 month is terrific. I think we'll be delighted to work with the industry and with the ministry and others to produce this thing before May 4th. So thank you very much. But now let me hand over to Mr. Chandra Agarwal, for Managing Director, TCI Express, for the vote of thanks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deepak. Thank you, Arpita ji and Minister Piyush Goyal ji. It's actually quite heartening to hear that, 2047 GDP target has been set to, let's hope, 47 trillion. But that also means that the logistics growth at that level of GDP would be about 5 trillion. So that also holds a very big opportunity for the logistics industry. So I'm grateful for that if that happens. India is on the trajectory to become the third largest economy under the visionary leadership of Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji. The vision India at 2047 is going to redefine the growth of the country's logistics sector and express delivery services during the period of Amrit Kal. I have been in the logistics industry for almost, you will not believe, 23 years. And I have seen, and my family business, TCI Group, has been in the business for about 70 years. So we have seen, we have transported, like goods on bullock carts to, at the moment on the high-speed trucks, EV trucks, and even rail. So I have seen that transition happen as to, when I joined the logistics industry in 2000, how by 2016, when the GST came in, the entire new opportunity of logistics opened up. Who would imagine that logistics industry would be of such a high scale, of high value in India? I mean, if you look at the numbers now, even at 15% GDP of the 3 trillion economy, that's about $450 billion. So it's a huge opportunity. And this was not possible, before, in the days of, pre-GST. So I think India, because of that, has now become one of the fastest growing market in the world, and also becoming a major logistics hub as we go along. It will be contributing a significant portion to the country's GDP, and the express industry has historically grown almost 2.5% of the GDP. So in essence, if, it's more of a higher target for the express delivery companies. If you're growing at, 10%, express companies should be growing at about 20-25%. So it's a very, formidable opportunity for all logistics players. The major initiatives taken by the government, led by Shri Narendra Modi ji, such as the Gati Shakti, the National Logistics Policy, multimodal connectivity, all the logistics parks, freight corridors, greenfield expressways, they all would drive the growth of the express delivery services in India. And it would also push the country towards one of the top logistics markets in the world. And this market is not going to be a saturated market. As the unorganized moves to the organized, we will see that the opportunity for everyone is opening up. India aims to become, now not 17 trillion, but 30 trillion plus dollar economy. And it will be a force multiplier towards achieving the ambitious goal through the logistics policy. The growth of EDS would also enable the Indian industries providing just-in-time services, reducing delays, and enhancing our global competitiveness. We will be driven by 5 pillars And of course, number one comes infrastructure, demand, skill, manpower, technology, and industrial growth. So we will see that all this is happening. And as we embark towards the Vision 2047, TCI Express does stand to contribute in this mission. And we will play a very important role in the delivery process to come along. The growth of EDS is crucial for India's journey towards Vision 2047. With the government's pivotal initiatives, as I have mentioned, we will be celebrating 100 years of independence with, a whole new revamped logistics setup in India. One final thing I must mention, as Sir Piyush had also mentioned, that we know the problems in India. We know everything. The report tells us the problem. I am seeing the problems on the ground. Now is the time to act on it. With that, I must thank you and Jai Bharat.
Yeah, take the